I want to tell you a little secret. This book right here helped me get married. I'm not even joking on that one. Literally, I picked up this book, Expert Secrets, and I started reading it for my business, right? And at the time I was dating my now wife, and I was like, wow, this book has so many great lessons in it. How about I apply the sales skills from this book into my dating and selling my wife on why she should marry me, right? And I did it, and it worked. I'm gonna go a little bit more into that a little bit later in this video, but this book is incredible. I'm gonna go over my 4 takeaways from this book. Takeaway number 1 is the attractive character. You know how there are movie stars that just are so attractive. I'm sure you have yours. Some of the top ones: Tom Cruise, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman. I was talking with my brother-in-law the other day, and we were saying, man, it's pretty crazy that the Top Gun that Tom Cruise produced in his 20s is still relevant today, and this new Top Gun that he made even more money than his previous Top Gun. And it's so cool to see how he's still relevant, and it's this idea that Russell Brunson talks about in this book, Expert Secrets. He says that you have to be an attractive character, right? What does that mean, attractive character? Well, you can look at any of those top actors or top singers or top authors, and they have something attractive about them. And there are 2 points that I would really like to, that I really got out of being an attractive character. One is you have to ask what your audience really wants, right? You can't just guess. You have to ask them what they actually want, and then 2, you give it to them. It's just that easy. What do you want? And now I'm going to give it to you because I know that that's what you want. I don't have to guess. And then the second thing is, don't be boring. There are so many podcasts, there's so many channels out there where it's just painful to watch because it is so flippin' boring what they're talking about. And they're just dragging on about going into all this logic and saying, oh yeah, if you just do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3, and it's just so boring, that's not attractive, okay? So that's takeaway number 1. Takeaway number 2 is this idea of the Epiphany bridge. What does that mean, Epiphany bridge? Well, let me share a story actually. When I was in high school, I went to church every week, but I mean I didn't really like have my own conversion or my own testimony, my own belief in the church. I just went because all my friends were there, and I just wanted to hang out with my friends, right? Well, I mean, who can blame me, right? You'd probably do the same thing. Well, I was taking a philosophy class at the same time, and in this philosophy class, my teacher, first day, he's like, yeah, water is truth. I'm like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, here's all the logic to back it up. I was like, oh, I had no idea. Water is truth. Great. The next day, actually, water isn't truth. This other philosopher discovered that the earth is truth. I was like, huh? Okay. Well, I guess earth is truth, and here's all the logic to back it up. Yeah, that actually makes sense. It doesn't make sense with the water. Then the next day it was fire. Then the next day it was wind. Then the next day it was, oh, it's the 4 elements. I was like, oh, now we finally have the truth. It's the 4. And then another philosopher came, and every single day it was different. And I remember one day leaving that class saying, there is no absolute truth. You can't come to absolute truth. I mean, we've been learning this entire semester. It keeps on changing. There isn't absolute truth. And actually during that time, I started feeling really scared. Because when you actually believe that, then you're like, what is the purpose of my life? Why am I even here? You know, if there is no absolute truth, what does it even matter what I choose? You know, and I started feeling scared inside, like, what? If there's no point to any of this, then I have no purpose. then this kind of sucks. You know, I don't have a purpose in life. Well, at that same time, I was challenged by a religious teacher to start reading the scriptures. And I read it, and the first day that I read it, I just felt like this super calming feeling and this super peaceful feeling that was complete opposite of doubt and fear. It was just this complete lightness versus the darkness. And I just felt so much power in, no, there is truth. This is the truth. And that was the start of my religious conversion. And now I'm where I'm at today because of that conversion. Now, let me stop you right there. That's a true story. Let me stop you right there. Instead of me sharing that story to get you to want to have your own religious conversion and say, and get you to read the scriptures for yourself, what if instead I had just said, you should really read the scriptures. There's a lot of good information in it. It talks about how you can be a better person, and it talks about how you can go live in heaven, and you can have all these things. Right? That's the logic. You'd be like, okay, like, no, I'm still not going to do it because I'm trying to convince you with logic versus with my story. I sold you with emotion, and I sold you with emotion through a story. And that's the entire idea of this Epiphany Bridge. It's don't sell people with logic, sell people with emotion. That's what they're actually sold by. And how do you sell with emotion? It's through stories. He shares this idea of whenever we have our own epiphanies, right? This new idea that comes to us, we're working hard, and usually we have a conflict and we're going against it. And just like myself, I was trying to find what was truth, and I had this conflict in my life, and then all of a sudden I did this work. I started reading the scriptures, and I had an epiphany. Oh wait, there is hope, there is peace. It's in the scriptures. I have a religious conversion. Well, he says, right after we have this epiphany for ourselves through this journey, we want to go out and tell everybody else the final result of our epiphany. We say, oh, you guys need to read the scriptures. But we forget that we weren't sold by that. We were sold through the journey ourselves. And so the way that we sell somebody else is through the exact same journey. It's a really cool idea, and just changed the entire way I thought about sales, right? Lesson number 3 is the hero's 2 journeys. He talks about how one of his really good friends is the top movie producer in Hollywood, and he produced lots of films that you would know. And he said every single script has to follow this idea of the hero's 2 journeys. And what are the hero's 2 journeys? Hero's 2 journeys, perfect example is Lightning McQueen, right? In Cars, what does he want? He wants the Piston Cup. That's his goal, right? He's going to do anything to achieve it. Well, along the way, he gets into conflict, and he gets into this small town, and he's trying to get out of this small town. Well, then he gets to the final Piston Cup to win it, and he's just about to win it, and the guy who's behind him ends up getting in a big crash, and he pulls on his brakes, and the guy in second place flies past him and wins it. And he backs up and pushes the other car ahead of himself and finishes the race, and he ends up finishing in last place. And the guy says, who got in the wreck, he says, why did you push me? You could have won the Piston Cup. And he said, an old car once told me, it's just an empty cup. Like, I feel that when I share that story, because it's the hero's 2 journeys. Of one journey is the external. Oh, I want to achieve this Piston Cup and the accolades and the status and all that stuff. But the other journey is an inner journey. This is the external. The inner journey is a transformation of who I am as a person. And a lot of times in our lives, in stories and movies, they don't achieve this external goal of the Piston Cup, but they do end up transforming themselves and they become a new person, a better person on the inside, right? One other example, one of my favorite examples, is from the movie Rudy, where if you haven't seen it, it's high on my movie list. And there's a scene where he's done everything he can to play in a game at Notre Dame where they're the #1 school in the nation, and it's the final game of the season, and he's not put on the roster. And he's like, that's it, and he leaves. And he's sitting at the stadium, and the janitor, one of his friends, comes by and he says, What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be at practice? He's like, I quit. And he says, oh, since when are you the quitting type? And he says, I put several years, 3 years into playing at this football team, and they never gave me a shot. And he said, and the janitor says to him, there are greater tragedies in the world, right? And he's like, I just want to go out there and prove to my dad that I was something. And prove to everybody. He's like, prove what? You were able to stick on with the best team in the land for 3 years. You came here. You got the best education in the nation. If you ain't figured out, if you ain't proven to that to yourself by now that you're worth something, then it ain't gonna never happen. And he's like, now go on back. And Rudy ends up going back to practice, and you'll have to watch the rest of the movie to find out what happens. But he has this external, I want to play on the Notre Dame football team. And the janitor says, what are you talking about? You just went to Notre Dame for 4 years and you got the best education in the nation, and you were able to stick on with the football team for 3 years. What are you talking about? You're 5'0" nothing, 100 nothing. You ain't got a speck of talent, and you were able to hang on with this football team because of your heart, right? And he transforms the inner person. It's a powerful, powerful idea. And the last point is point number 4, false beliefs. Now this gets into how I propose to my wife. He explains this idea that there are 3 false beliefs in every customer's mind. There's the vehicle, the internal, and the external. I'm not going to go into great detail on this because it's better to read the book, and I'd have to have a whole nother video explaining this. But essentially, when people go to buy, their first false belief is the vehicle. Is this product actually gonna help me? I don't know if your company is actually the best company for me. I was just getting tires, and I called up a bunch of different places. I don't know if your company is actually gonna help me. Next, once they overcome the vehicle, then it's an internal false belief. Okay, I know that your product works, but I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I have the regimen. I don't know if I have the work ethic to actually see it through, right? Then the last false belief is, okay, I know that your product works. I know that I'm going to be able to make it work for me, but there's an external false belief. I don't know if I'm going to have enough money. I don't know if I have enough time to do this, right? And so you think about these false beliefs, and then you create stories to sell them on overcoming these false beliefs. Well, I did this. I actually wrote down on a piece of paper my wife's, my potential wife, because we were just dating at the time and I wanted to propose to her. I actually wrote out what is her vehicle false belief? What would her false beliefs be about me? What would her false beliefs be about her? Is she not ready for it? And what would her false beliefs about external? Have we dated enough time? Do we have enough money to get married? Are we mature enough? That kind of stuff, right? I wrote down all of that, and I wrote down stories with every single false belief to overcome each of the false beliefs. And I took the paper to my wife, and I said, hey, I know that you're probably thinking this. I have the paper right there. It's like the sales script right there. I'm like, you're probably thinking this, right? She's like, I am thinking that. Well, I thought about that, and here's what I'm thinking. I told a story of how to overcome that. And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And at the end of the conversation, she's like, yeah, it was like a 4-hour conversation, a 4-hour sales pitch. And at the end, she's like, yeah, I think that works. And I went on to propose, and we went on to marry. And she still remembers that. And she said, yep, that night is when Addison sold me on getting married to him, because I literally used this book to sell my wife. So don't just use this for business purposes. You can also use it to date and find your potential spouse in the future. So I honestly love this book. My challenge to you is go ahead, read or listen to it. I'm a big fan of listening to books, but either way, if you read it or you listen to it, go ahead, do that this week. And then once you finish it, go ahead and continue to read one book every single week, an educational book. I'm not talking about fantasy books. I'm not talking about romantic comedies. Read an educational book every single week, and I promise you that when you do, you will grow your business 10 times faster and your personal life, and you might just even find your future wife or husband.